Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, news, music, sports, everything really. Depending on the guest, we talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. You'll recognize my guests from a lot of really cool TV shows and movies, more specifically on Netflix, Hillbilly Elegy, and on HBO Max, The Flight Attendant. We're with Owen Asztalos. Owen, welcome to Popternative, man.
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to do this. I mean, let's start, you know what I mean? You filmed Hillbilly Elegy when you were 13 years old, correct?
That's right. Yeah, 13 years old, and I had my 14th birthday party on set.
Well, I did ask right now. What was that like?
That was incredible. That was so I don't know if you're familiar with the scene where I'm working as like a desk boy, you know, I'm
Yep.
getting prescriptions for the women or whatever. But that was my 14th birthday party, and right after that we had a big cake that Ron surprised me with, which was pretty surreal, pretty great.
That is unbelievable. That's awesome. I mean, kind of before, so I guess, you know, that's a big movie at the age of 13. When did you kind of decide though that storytelling and acting was something you wanted to do, and what drove you to it? Like, what were projects that you kind of watched that you were like, hey, I want to do this?
Sure. No, ever since I was a little kid, really. I mean, you know, not to sound sort of cliche, but
Yeah.
ever since I was a little kid, you know, I've always just loved watching movies and sort of just everything about entertainment, you know, music, movies, all that stuff. And I guess I just sort of was a different little kid in the sense that I took it to the next level, where I sort of, you know, wanted to immerse myself so far into that entertainment to the point where I was producing it, which, you know, is a more mature thought that I've had more so now, you know, as an older teenager. But you know, that was, I guess, sort of the frame of mind when I was a little kid, is, you know, I actually want to be, you know, in that place and be in this sort of fantasy world, and that's the way I've always looked at acting, and the way that I still look at it, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's interesting too, because you also play music. You play guitar for people that
Yeah.
kind of follow you on social media. And it's interesting because when I always ask, you know, whether it's music, writing, acting, it's all storytelling. So the fact that you also like play music too, you're just an overall storyteller, Owen.
Heck yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that's very nice of you. That's a great way of looking at it, definitely. I mean, and that's sort of the approach that I try to come at it all with, is, you know, just you know, I play music to and this is a quote from my guitar teacher. You know, I play music to inspire, not to impress, and the same thing with acting. You know, I want to perform for people to inspire them, not to impress them, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I play music too. I play drums. That's where the name PD Beats came from.
Yeah.
That was my stage name when I used to play in bands and stuff.
Yeah. We have to jam sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, these virtual jams are pretty cool too,
Yeah.
eh? Like, I'm
Yeah.
seeing my dad also plays drums too. All these virtual jams are pretty cool to see. Have you done any of those virtual jams yet?
I haven't done any of the virtual jams. I mean, I guess you could sort of call it like I have Skype lessons with my guitar teacher who lives in the UK, actually. But you know, we sort of have virtual jams, I guess, you know, if that's what you want to call
That's
it.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see. I saw some footage of like Queen, like Brian May from Queen
Yeah.
playing with fans. It was really cool.
Yeah, no. I saw one that John Mayer did the other night. That was neat.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know what? Let's talk about Hillbilly Elegy. I mean, Amy Adams, Glenn Close. I mean, I mean, what's more to say? Like, you're in a movie with some of the biggest storytellers, some of the best storytellers on the planet. I mean, you get this role, you prep for it. You know, you're playing a character in a flashback. What kind of goes through your mind when you're on a project like this?
Um, so many things.
Yeah.
So many things. I mean, I don't even know where to start, you know, just I guess the biggest thing for me whenever I sort of started showing up to set and Amy and Glenn arrived was just you know, holy, like, you know, this is actually happening with these, you know, actual like real, you know, tangible people. And they're actually, you know, as amazing actors and actresses as everybody says that they are, and as they obviously portray themselves to be in movies, and just the way that the way that they're professional and their professionalism was like nothing else, and it was so inspiring, and it really pushed me into a direction to really go outside my comfort zone and yeah, just push myself as an actor, definitely.
Absolutely. You know, the obvious question, the obvious answer to this question, because the question I'm asking you is, what do you hope people get out of Hillbilly Elegy? And you're hoping that people kind of enjoy it and kind of, want to watch it again and recommend it. But for what are other things besides the obvious, right, that you're hoping people get when they watch that film and they see you kind of in a flashback and everything? What are you hoping to get out of Hillbilly Elegy?
That's a great question. I would say just, sort of the message of just, it's a movie that's supposed to symbolize, this guy who's able to persevere through a situation where sort of the given consequences turn back against him.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's that sort of classic, sort of underdog coming of age kind of style story. And I think that, if people just took it with that sort of grain of salt and appreciated it for a story and for this sort of universal theme that can be applied to anybody's life in any part of the world, I think that that's sort of what the movie's about is looking at the the big picture rather than just this narrow box, of storytelling.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. It's funny whenever like I mention storytelling on the show,
Yeah.
it comes back the whole episode. Like it's just people love that word, and that's why I kind of bring it up. You know what I mean? Because that's literally what you do. And it's funny too because I've talked to some people too, and they'd be like, "What do you do for a living?" If they're like talking to a young, they're not going to go into the whole like what exactly acting is. They're just going to say, "Hey, I play pretend for a living." Like that's literally what you do.
Seriously. No, I mean, and like I said at the start of the interview, I mean, that's the only way I've ever looked at acting is, I would dress up in costumes when I was a little kid and, do all this stuff. And I still do the same thing. I still dress up in costume and I still act out parts. And, I'm still looking at imaginary walls that are, blue screens where there's nothing really there, but have to imagine all this stuff. And I did that when I was a little kid too. I would look at an empty field and pretend there was a train there that was being derailed, something.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we talked about Hillbilly Elegy, another another project that you worked on, a TV show that was also a flashback character. That's interesting too, right? You played a flashback character in two projects.
Typecasted already.
It's true. The flashbacks are so interesting and so powerful, man. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. Have you watched Cobra Kai on Netflix?
I have quite a bit.
Have you watched the last season?
I have, yes.
So
John Kreese,
the young Kreese. I mean, the flashbacks are pretty crazy. We interviewed Barrett Carnahan, who played young Kreese, about it and just being involved. But Flight Attendant, another show that you're on, flashback. I just love this series. It was just so good. What was two questions. What was that kind of like working and being in being again in a flashback role, so you kind of have that familiarity a little bit, but a completely different kind of project than Hillbilly Elegy, a different feel. You know what I mean? What was that kind of experience like?
Totally. No, it was definitely different. I think the biggest takeaway in terms of actually shooting for me, because whenever I first saw the show, actually I was like, oh my god, I don't remember shooting it like this. But I think a lot of the reason being for that is because on Hillbilly Elegy we had immediate playback whenever we wanted on set, where we could watch back the footage. And that was something that Ron sort of pushed me in a direction to do, where he said, it's good to watch playback because you're sort of more conscious of your performance. And, some actors and some directors have their little nitpicks about playback, and they're like, oh no, you're not allowed to see anything until the movie comes, blah, 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 whatever. But Ron told me, he was like, it's good to remain pretty conscious about what you're doing and how it's translating on camera. But on the Flight Attendant, we didn't have live playback. So I never really knew what I was doing was translating after coming off of Hillbilly, where I was like going out of my way to do that. So it was definitely weird because then whenever I saw it, it was like, oh, that's what I did there, and it was just sort of that strange experience. But you don't realize how much of a difference those little things make until they're kind of taken away from you,
But it's funny too, because I always ask, and I just realized I didn't, but I always ask because you can't assume that people have watched the stuff they're in because it's happened from
Right.
time to time where
Yeah.
like people haven't watched it because some people don't enjoy kind of watching certain projects they're in because they're not sure how it's going to look. Like that's a thing I think
I'll tell
people
you
don't
what.
realize.
I'll tell you what, Gabe Basso, as far as I know, he still hasn't seen the movie.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who plays the older version of me. Yeah, we actually had an interview, and the interviewer they said, Gabe, so what'd you think of the movie? And Gabe was like, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
What was that like working with him? He's been in some really cool projects as well.
Yeah, it was incredible. You know, Gabe is just one of those actors that has that ability to sort of really lead a scene, and you don't really realize it until you sort of watch him act. But he's definitely got that presence, which was perfect for JD, I think, which was sort of this guy who's trying to take charge a little bit. And he definitely carries that with himself and his personality. And we actually worked extensively together during pre-production to create that synchronization for the character. And he was super fun to work with, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because people don't realize that too. Because maybe people are gonna be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna ask that question," because they're actually playing the same person from different kind of time spans. But like the behind the scenes, I mean, you definitely kind of worked with him for sure.
Oh my God, yeah, a ton, a ton.
Was it a
More
learning experience too, naturally as well?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, with something like that, I mean, it's sort of funny, you know, like I grow up watching all these movies and you're like, oh, I wonder how they did that effect, or I wonder how they sort of created that and made such like a seamless transition or whatever. And you really, I mean, like that was the thing about Hillbilly Elegy was like my first extensive, you know, project that I worked on, and I saw so many sort of secrets unveiled right before me, you know, and it was a little unnerving at first, honestly, just because I was like, you know, wow, all these sort of things that I had sort of created in my head were just kind of out the drain, you know, and everything was just made very honest very quickly.
For sure, for sure. It's interesting to see. Mentioned at the top, you're a musician. You obviously have some projects that you know the ideal dream projects kind of work on. I mean, working on a movie or TV show about music, I think would be pretty cool for Owen Asztalos.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, like whatever comes my way, like I'd be so down to do. Whether it's a TV show, whether it's another movie, whether it's, you know, an album or like a record label or something. You know, just everything that I'm sort of invested in my life right now. I have a ton of fun doing. You know.
Absolutely.
Uh,
We're talking about your acting and the things you were in as an actor, but obviously, you know, naturally, a lot of people kind of go and work on like they wear many hats. People
yeah.
that you know act might want to write, they might want to produce, they might want to direct. Right? Have you kind of thought about that? Have you thought about kind of like writing, directing, like kind of other steps down the road?
Yeah, a ton. A ton. No, definitely. I just before Hillbilly Elegy, my sort of dream, it was really weird. It shifted really quickly, but like my sort of dream was I wanted to be on like a really long lasting TV show, you know, something like a That 70s Show or something like that, you know, something that just like spanned over multiple seasons. And I just sort of had that like fantasy built up in my head. But then whenever I did Hillbilly Elegy, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like features is what I want to do. And you know, I guess it's sort of the dream for most actors, but I definitely made that firm decision, and then also working so, you know, so much with Ron over those 3 months, I was like, yes, directing is definitely something I want to look further into, and we talked a lot about schools for that, you know, colleges to go to, and a lot of stuff like that, and he actually let me come to set a couple days and just shadow him when he was doing the older JD stuff, which was
Wow.
yeah.
What was that like?
It was
You're setting me up for like the easy follow up
yeah.
questions. Like I need to know about this.
Yeah, no, it was like probably one of the greatest experience I mean I'll ever have aside from making the movie. Excuse me. You know, it was just being able to watch him in his element. You know, I mean, it's just it's weird when you watch somebody who's so good at doing, you know, this particular thing. It's just it's like the space around you doesn't exist. You know, there's just this sort of gray area of shadow around Ron, and he's just in the moment. And it's something really magical to see, and something that I sort of aspired to take with me for the rest of production and for the rest of my career.
Man, that's amazing. That's so cool to hear, man. No, seriously, that's it's motivational. It's
Yeah.
motivation.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is amazing. Owen, thank you so much for coming on Popternative, man. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. So people can watch Hillbilly Elegy now on Netflix,
Yes,
and they can watch The Flight Attendant season 1 on HBO Max.
that's all correct.
So you're everywhere, basically.
yeah. Basically.
Where can people follow you on social media to keep update with everything?
You can hop over to my Instagram, which is just my name. It's Owen_Asztalos, and then blah 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 Asztalos. And then I have a Twitter, which I believe is the same thing, or maybe without the underscore, or it is the same thing. I'm not sure. And then I have a Facebook, which is the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, seriously, congratulations with Hillbilly Elegy and The Flight Attendant.
Thank
And just keep going, man. It's great to see all the success so far. And I hope it continues to get bigger and better for you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. If you want to just listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, the audio-only versions are available. Popternative.com for more pop culture, news, lifestyle, music, and sports content as well. Till next time, this is Petey Beats and Owen Asztalos signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.